Where do we go? Southport. We went down to Southport, check out Southport after the hurricane, and I wanted to see some of my students' art was up. I want to show you that. And took a look around, and there's like a little new market down there that's pretty cool. So we're going to do a little tour of that. And while I was down there, I'm looking out in the Cape Fear, and I'm thinking, I bet there's some fish out there. So then we head out there into the Cape Fear just to see what we can catch on some shrimp, surprisingly. Let's go fishing. So we start off by just going down to Southport, and this was pretty much right after the hurricane hit, so you can see there obviously was some hurricane damage at the time. We were just going to take a walk, a look at some of the shops. This is a bistro down there. Have you ever seen the movie Safe Haven? It's a Nicholas Sparks movie. It actually was called Sleeping with the Enemy. It was made back in the 80s, but then he just basically stole it, ripped off the whole thing, and called it Safe Haven. So, okay, thank you, Nicholas Sparks. Then we stopped by the Franklin Square Gallery, where we were going to have an art show for our students, but because of COVID, we couldn't. So they took their art and they blew them up on these big panels and put them on the outside of the building. So I was like, I've got to go see my students' art on big panels on the side of the building. And it was pretty cool. So kudos to Franklin Square Gallery for doing that. I meant a lot to my students, I know that. Now, we went down to, there's a new place down there called the Southport Market, and I had never been in it, and I think it's fairly new, and it's a really nice space, and they have all like really fun stuff. Like, look at these barrels of candy and these giant jawbreakers the size of baseballs. It's like candy. Right behind that was a fudge counter, and then of course I like jellies, right, and jam, so they had a whole section of that, and then next to that, they had some hot sauce, and I was like, oh, I'm totally getting this hot sauce. And it was just a matter of just trying to decide which one. Like, I like hot sauce. So, yeah, so I picked up the habanero one. All right, yes, let's do that. And then I rounded the corner. They had some cheer wine, which my brother-in-law really likes. And then behind that, there was more hot sauce. I was like, yes, more hot sauce. But I already picked up the habanero one, so I was going to stick with that. But they did have a nice selection of that as well. And then I turned around from there, and there was more hot sauce and rubs and other types of things from barbecue. It's not just all hot sauce. They sell a lot of other fun stuff, too. I just happen to really like it. Hey, bottled water, an alternative to plastic. It's in a box. I mean, that's cool. Boxed water, I should have said. Then they had this is where I had to get the soda. I had picked up a Dr. Pepper for my wife, and I was like, I'm going to get a soda. Look at this one, Toxic Slime. They had, what was it, unicorn drool and alien spit or something like that. And I ended up picking up worm ooze because I'm like, I like the fish, so I got to have the worm ooze. Then we went over to the Silver Winery, which I had never been to either, and went inside there, had a really nice selection of wines. But of course, I had to see the shark on the ceiling to start with. So if you like wines, they had what was called a white Merlot, which I was interested in, but then they said it was really sweet, and I don't really like sweet wines. But they had a nice selection of IPAs as well, including the Great White and the Sharkinator. Now, how can a guy who makes a fishing YouTube channel not want to buy a Sharkinator IPA? Then I walked down to the Cape Fear, and I was like, okay, this is where we got to go. We got to go fishing out there. And the sign said, no fishing, but I can't read English. What? So I walked over to the city pier thinking maybe I'd be able to go down there and go fishing. I think maybe by now it's reopened. I'm not sure what's going on down there, but it was definitely closed. This is a couple of weeks ago when I filmed this, so it was definitely closed back then. So I wasn't going to be able to fish in Southport. So we ended up getting on a boat with my friend Steve Adams. Now this is the Southport Marina, and if you aren't familiar with it, there used to be a big dock there and a building in the middle where you could get gas. I don't know if you can tell from this video, but there was nothing there. We went past the dredging, which is always cool to see. They just got that big crane that pulls that stuff out of the water. And then we got to the place where I wanted to go, which was really the end of Oak Island, Caswell Beach. That's where the Southern Baptist place is, building there. And I've never been down to that shore to fish, but I was curious to see if I could just catch some blues or something there. I tried 4 different lures, including this spool. I tried a gotcha plug, I tried a mirror lure, I tried another lure, and I thought if there's any blues here, they're definitely going to go after these big silver shiny things, right? So I just couldn't catch anything on it. And then my little pink rod, which I had just put a couple pieces of shrimp just for kicks and giggles, all of a sudden there's a hit. And I'm like, all right. So this is a rod we bought for my daughter years ago. It's like a little Shakespeare rod. It probably cost $35. And I've caught more fish and some of the best fish I've ever caught on this silly little rod. So for all the pen reels I have, this is the best rod. And I'm fishing with Steve Adams, and I said to him, Steve, which rod do you want? I've got the pen or I've got got the little pink Shakespeare, and he was like, oh, I'll take the pen. And I'm like, I'm telling you, the Shakespeare's the way to go. And it was. So here's my bluefish. And like I said, I just had shrimp on here. He was just going after the shrimp. I don't know why I was throwing all those other lures and they weren't going after it, but they sure were eating up the shrimp. Now, they weren't giant. They probably were between ones we were catching like 12 to 14 inches. This guy's lip was all messed up. I think he had probably been into a couple of hooks earlier in the day, it looked like. I don't think I ripped him up that much. And then, again, just putting pieces of shrimp on there on the little pink rod, and I'm catching a little bit bigger ones this time, so I'm going to be like, oh, let me get my net, because this one's so much bigger. I think it just feels bigger on the little pink rod. I don't think it actually was bigger, but got the net and pulled it in the boat, and I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. I should probably keep a couple of these to make some smoked fish dip. So I got fish smoking right now in the smoker from these blues. Now, I put a couple in there. I threw a couple back because they were all about the same size. There were no really big ones. They weren't terribly small, but the limit's 3. So, and I was only keeping 3. Now, meanwhile, Steve Adams, who took the pen reel, should have taken the Shakespeare, caught himself some croaker. So, all right, try again, Steve. We caught one of the croaker. We cut up the croaker. We put some of the croaker on there, casted it out, and he caught a shark. And the shark proceeded to wrap itself around the line on the anchor. So we unwrapped him. We got him like a couple hundred times around it. He swam around, got him out. And I was just showing Steve it was an Atlantic sharpnose, and I was showing him the dots on it. And then the shark decided he wanted to go back in the water. So I let him go back in the water. Meanwhile, finally Steve got himself a bluefish. So here we go. He got him. And he got a couple. We each caught about, I don't know, about between 4 and 6, I guess. So I might have let that one go, but Steve's next catch is the best. Watch this one. It thinks it's a tarpon. It doesn't know it's a bluefish. It was jumping out of the water. He was pulling it up a little bit, but it was definitely taking itself out of the water there. I've never seen a bluefish jump like a tarpon before. And then I got him in the net, and of course wrapped himself up in the net. But let's watch this in slow motion. All right, we got a little color there. I'm going to put the net underneath it to get it to swim into the net when Steve's pulling it up. And this little bluefish is like, I'm not staying. I'm going airborne. I'm a tarpon. I put the net underneath it, hoping it would just fall into the net, and it fell back in the water. But we eventually got him back up in the boat. And then it was back to the pink rod again. The pink rod is the way to go. And I got myself a shark here. He was biting on, I think he was biting on the piece of croaker I had on there. He was definitely chewing on that piece of croaker. So we didn't catch any blues on croaker. It's another Atlantic sharpnose, by the way. Didn't catch any blues on croaker. Didn't catch any blues on the lures. All we were catching them on was the pieces of frozen shrimp. I got at the Publix. I got it at the Publix. Frozen shrimp. Then we caught a couple of whiting. This is one of them, but really kind of disappointing. I don't know if this guy is even like 8 or 9 inches. He's just really small, little thin little guy. It'd be nice to have a whiting, but they're so slippery. He got to go right back in. And then I think we got one more blue. Yep, he comes here. And like I said, I did keep 3 of them. They were all the same size. It was amazing. There were no smaller, bigger. They were all, I would say, 14 inches, maybe something in that range. They must have all been from the same family. They're all born together. So Steve got himself another whiting too. He got himself a little whiting, and that was about it. I think at that point we were catching some croaker, and it just kind of slowed down. And the blues, I guess the school blues that was there, kind of had moved on. So we did really well for about an hour, and I would recommend it. Check out the Cape Fear off Caswell Beach. Go fishing.